All right, new details this hour on how President Trump allegedly inflated his net worth to get more money from lenders. And our big question is that mortgage fraud? Today, the Washington Post lays out how the president added space to his already existing properties to make more money. And now investigators on Capitol Hill are trying to get to the bottom of this. The Washington Post states that when Donald Trump wanted to make a good impression on a lender, a business partner, even a journalist, he sometimes sent them official-looking documents called Statements of Financial Condition. Now, those documents could run up to 20 pages full of numbers laying out Trump properties, debts, and his multi-billion-dollar net worth. But the Washington Post found that the numbers were flawed. Some didn't include properties that had big debts against them. Some assets were undervalued. Some numbers were just plain inaccurate. And in 2011, Trump's financial statement said he had 55 home lots to sell at his Southern California golf course. But the Post found that the city records showed that Trump only had 31 lots that were ready for sale there. In Virginia, Trump claimed that his vineyard had 2,000 acres. It really has about 1,200. Trump Tower, he said it has 68 stories. It's actually only got 58 stories. And get this, in 2013, Trump added brand value, meaning his name as an asset, valued at $4 billion. That doubled his net worth from $4.6 billion to $8.6 billion. Joining me now, Washington Post reporter who wrote this piece, Jonathan O'Connell, as well as our friend NBC legal analyst Danny Savalas. Thanks to both of you for being here. Jonathan, let's get up to speed on where these investigations stand and what documents Congress is going to sort of zone in on to get to the bottom of it.
Sure. Again, these are Mr. Trump's or President Trump's statements of financial condition, he called them. We know only a few examples of how he really used them, which I think is probably what investigators are going to try to get at. When his former attorney, Michael Cohen, testified in front of the House, Mr. Cohen said that Trump had passed them to Deutsche Bank and Mr. Trump's attempt to buy the Buffalo Bills and to insurance companies. But we don't know very many other examples of how Mr. Trump used them, even though we know that he produced them multiple times over a 20 or 25-year period.
Let me ask you this, Danny. You and I were talking about this. It's well-established fact that the president lies.
Yes.
When it comes to this kind of thing, where does it become a legal problem?
It's perfectly fine, probably, to lie to journalists, to lie to reporters about your net worth. It may just be puffery, because you're not inducing them to give you anything in return. It takes a turn towards the illegal when you start deceiving banks and other lending institutions, where you start inflating your assets or your value in order to induce them to give you a loan. And the key under the statute is the intent to expose that bank to some actual loss or just potential loss. So in other words, it doesn't matter if they give you a loan and you end up paying it off anyway and no harm, no foul. Right. That doesn't work because you expose the bank intentionally to a potential loss. And that is the key to the bank fraud statute.
Jonathan, you in your report point out that in 2011, Donald Trump valued his Westchester County estate at $261 million, which is a lot more than the $20 million value assigned by local assessors. Is there anybody other than Congress looking into this? Because obviously there are levels of cheating. Danny says somebody might just get their loan paid off and no harm, no foul. But when you assess your value of your land incorrectly, somebody gets hurt.
Sure. I mean, New York State officials are looking into aspects of this already, and we may not know as much as is going on as there is. But, for instance, if you get an insurance policy using fraudulent financial information, that could cause you a legal problem, I'm sure. Attorneys would agree. One question here before we get going too quickly is, there's nobody has raised their hand like a bank or insurer.
That's what I was wondering.
And said, hey, listen, I have been, no one has, Mr. Trump has obviously been sued many times, but I have not seen anyone, no bank or insurer has said, hey, listen, we use this information to give him a policy or a loan or something, and now we feel we have been wronged, which normally you would see in a situation where there was some type of alleged bank fraud, or insurance fraud, really, or financial fraud.
What does that make you think? Because I'm trying to figure out what that means. Does it mean that it was a little bit here and a little bit there and nobody understood the scope of it, so there's no claim from an individual?
Well, one thing to remember is that all the examples of these that we have seen carry with them a cover sheet from an accountant showing that, with the accountant saying, basically, we can't attest to any of these numbers. Mr. Trump told us this stuff. We read through it. We put our name on it saying we don't know if it's right or not. And any really obviously large or accomplished financial institution like a Deutsche Bank would be able to see through that pretty clearly. So it's hard to tell what these documents accomplish for Mr. Trump.
These places will be able to tell that a 68-story building was really a 58-story building. We were just putting up there, Danny, the disclaimer, really. Trump's accounting firm putting up a disclaimer to say, oh, this is based on information the client gave us. And by the way, a lot of accountants do that.
That's right. They're not uncommon.
They're telling somebody, this is information the client gave us. We're not telling you that it's true.
That's right, and accountants do that fairly often. After all, many accountants, my accountant has to rely on the hogwash that I provide him to do my return. And that's the case with accountants all over the country. So disclaimers like this are not that uncommon. And arguably, the stronger the disclaimer and the more outrageous the puffery. I mean, after all, what would an accountant do with Trump's own estimate of his name brand value? I mean, how are you supposed to actually analyze that or actually take that seriously?
And Jonathan, goodwill is one of those difficult things to analyze, right? The person who has it always thinks it's worth more. I happen to think that my branding Ali Velshi is probably more valuable than you would.
Well, I mean, evaluating a brand is a difficult thing from the outset, but I don't think also that anybody looking at these documents would guess that Mr. Trump or his company did a serious, assessment of what his brand was actually worth when he just puts the number $4 billion on there with zero explanation. So it's hard to see for me, it's hard to see what legal weight that would really carry.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.